Setting goals. Setting goals is something we know we're supposed to do, or maybe we do in other areas of our life. When we go to the range and we shoot, a lot of times that's not what happens. Or people just set an overall goal of something they eventually want to achieve. So for example, say you go to the range and you decide, I'm gonna shoot a 2-second bill drill, or you decide that you're gonna shoot the fast 4 drill in under 2 seconds, right? And you go out there and you shoot rep after rep after rep, and you go over and over and over, and you're trying to hit that 2 seconds and you don't quite make it. Or when you do, it's usually because of luck, and then you can't replicate that over and over. So why does this happen? Well, it's because you haven't ever done it before and you haven't gotten to that point. And maybe that's too much improvement to understand what it actually takes to achieve that. So understanding all this, how do we actually get to that point? Well, we have different types of goals, and we're gonna break down 3 of them. So our first goal that we're gonna talk about is gonna be our outcome goal. And then we're gonna talk about our process and performance. So to sum it up, outcome goal, that's our ultimate destination. Process and performance goals is actually how we actually get there. Establish a baseline, focused improvement based on 5 or 15%. So let's talk about that now. So first we need to talk about our outcome goals out of the 3 of them. Outcome goals is where most of us usually start, right? We see something that we want to achieve. Maybe that's outperforming another person, or maybe that's just beating your friends on the range, or achieving some kind of standard, right? And for this, we're talking about the fast 4 drill. So what is the fast 4? Well, we're shooting with a rifle, 2 shots to the middle target, then 1 to each outside target. And we want to get below 2 seconds on that. Below 3 is a good time, but below 2, now you're cooking, right? That's kind of the gold standard. So we see that and we understand that this is what I want to achieve. So what is the outcome goal good for? Well, it's best for practice or training sessions that are working on a specific goal or skill. So we want to use these in our training sessions. If you step up to a match, if you're a competition shooter, you enjoy shooting competitions, or you go out to the range with your team, your unit, your agency, or your buddies and say, I want to achieve this standard, we're shooting together. If you set an outcome goal right then, you're probably not going to achieve it. Why? Because you don't have the skills in between, and you don't understand what it takes to actually achieve that yet. And if you do actually hit it, and say you get that under 2 seconds, right? It's probably due to luck if you're not there yet. And if you did achieve it, you don't know why you were successful. So we know that when we set something, we want to know exactly what it took to get there, and we want that to be repeatable, right? So when is it not best? Well, we just talked about that. And what we'll say is win the stage. So for me, when I first started shooting competitions, and by no means am I some crazy grandmaster, world champion, or anything like JJ Ricazza or Bob Vogel or some of these others. But when I first started shooting this, show up and say, I'm gonna win this stage. That's not realistic, because at the time I was a C, B class shooter or something like that, brand new to this. And there's grandmasters there. There's masterclass guys. There's people, men and women, that have been shooting this for years, and they understand what it takes to actually win. I have no idea. So what did I do? I went out there, I outran my headlights. I didn't perform as well as I probably could have, and it actually made me worse. Why? All because I wanted to win the stage, when in reality, that's not quite where my ability level is. So this is not what we want to do. We don't want to show up there right off the bat and say, I'm going to set an outcome goal. It's not effective in organizing our thoughts and behaviors, right? There's too much there. What we need to do when we step up to something like that, whether it's, again, just a drill or competition stage or whatever, is we need to be able to organize our thoughts and behaviors to actually achieve that. And that's where we're going to look at the other 2. And then also, it's not repeatable. So like we said, if you do awesome on that one run, you really don't know why you did it. The ultimate goal here is that everything we do is repeatable. And we say it 100 times in class and on a lot of different stuff. Repeatable processes produce predictable results. Well, how do we do that? Well, it's this 3 right here. So we know that outcome is our ultimate destination and where we want to get to with our goal setting. So now let's talk about the process and performance goals. First, we're going to talk about process goals up here. So process goals are all about techniques, mechanics, and strategies for skill development. It's best for breaking down the outcome goals into smaller, repeatable processes. And that's the key to being successful and actually seeing linear, improvement, or whatever you want to call it. So how do we actually do that? Well, first off, we have to decide that when we run something, we got to get a baseline. So say we're going to run this fast 4 drill and do 10 out of 10. And let's just say I ran this thing 10 out of 10 clean, where I can get all my hits and think and feel my way through it. And by think and feel my way through it, what we're looking at is we're going to reset that trigger on the next target and drive the sight into that A zone or to the edge of the A zone if I'm one of those people that keeps overdriving it. So when I'm doing this, my process goal, setting up overall, is I'm gonna get 10 out of 10 clean runs. But when I step up to shoot it, I'm focused on what little things I need to do to achieve that. And for me, when I shoot it, it's reset the trigger onto the next target and then drive that sight and that gun and that muzzle to the edge of that A zone. So it hits the A zone, boom, I know it's gonna be in the middle, and then I'll break those shots. So for me, that's the key. I wanna be able to reset that trigger and drive everything as hard and fast as I can. The other aspects of it with recoil management and getting that first shot on the low ready, that's all fairly automated for me, but those things may be what I need to think about as I'm doing it. So once we run those 10 out of 10, you basically just get your average time, right? And for this example, we're just gonna say 2.5 seconds. So for me, if I shoot that in 2.5 seconds on average, 10 out of 10 clean runs, and granted, there's gonna be a little variation in there, maybe a 1/10 of a second, 2/10 of a second difference, something like that, but I wanna stay pretty close to that. That's gonna give me my baseline, and that tells you where you're at. That right there says, I am capable of this right now. So that's our first step. So anytime you're gonna set a goal, you have to know where you're going, and you have to know where you're coming from, right? Where'd you come from, where are you going? So as we do that, I know I'm at 2.5 seconds, and I know I wanna get to 2 seconds, which is our outcome. So what do? Then we get to our performance goals. Performance goals is where we actually are gonna put that data down on paper, and that's where we're actually gonna focus our improvement. So what is the performance goal? Well, a performance goal is a more objective measure of how effectively you can create a skill by timing process goal reps, right? So what does that mean? It means I'm gonna time each run. I'm gonna write it down in a book, right? A journal. You can use a training journal like we sell, or anything with paper and a pen or an iPad. It doesn't really matter, it's your choice. But just make it so that you can have this with you. It fits in your bag, you know you're gonna take it, and I can log all that in it and look back at it. That's kind of the most important part. So get yourself a journal, whether it's this one that we sell on the website, shameless plug, or you use something else. If you have an iPad, I highly suggest the Good Notes app. That thing's great. So we understand what we're gonna do and why we're setting the performance goal. Now, how do we do that? Well, after we've established the baseline, we wanna go ahead and set performance goal that is anywhere from 5 to 15% faster. And as your times are faster and faster, and you're getting to that higher, your limit of not limited performance, but as you're performing better and better, your improvements are gonna be smaller and smaller. Case in point, 5% of 5 seconds is, well, a lot bigger than 5% of 2.5 seconds. So if we look at that, after you've set the baseline, set it for 5 to 15% faster. So for us, our baseline is 2.5 seconds. So a good goal in training is saying, all right, well, I shot that, I got my baseline, then every time I come back, I'm gonna try and aim for 5% improvement. So my goal next time is 2.4 seconds, right? If you wanted to say a 15% improvement, well, that's 2.1 seconds. And honestly, when we get down to this, 15% for a newer person might be fairly achievable, right? Because they're not as used to shooting, they haven't been doing it as long, there's a lot more, they're kind of in that cognitive stage of learning, so there's a lot more improvement to make. So for someone that's more experienced, for intermediate or more, I hate to start using the term advanced, but people have been shooting longer and understand their abilities better, 5% is probably a better number to see that measured linear improvement throughout. So next time I go to the range, I would set 2.4 seconds. And I'd say that's my goal. And once I can hit that 10 out of 10 clean runs and hit it in 2.4 seconds or whatever my new average is, great, I've achieved that. Now I have a repeatable process with a predictable result that is actually now faster. So we're starting to get there. Every time you go to the range, we just keep improving, right? But know what you're doing before you go to the range. Say, I'm running these drills. I know what my baseline is on it, kind of like when you're at the gym. You get a max lift and then you do different percentages to improve that. Well, similar concept. I know my baseline is 2.5. Now I'm shooting for 2.4. And then from there, I take off another 5 or 10% and I shoot for that the next time. Are you gonna get it every time you go to the range? Probably not. But are you gonna get close and see general improvement? Absolutely. I think one of the best things that this teaches us is that it really makes you confident in your skills. So what is confidence? Well, we know confidence is preparation, that right there, and competence. If I prepare like this and I go out and shoot and know exactly what I'm capable of, I will be competent in performing that skill, which gives me confidence when I have to step up. And honestly, for me, it's shooting a demo in class. That is one of the most stressful things you can do, especially having shot for a while. Life gets crazy and busy and you step up and there's a no-fail drill that you got to do in front of everybody. Heart rate goes up, right? But if I practice that and know where I'm at, I know exactly what I need to do to be successful. So that's how we do that. So how do we think of the three of these? Well, first, process goals, we're going to establish a baseline. That's going to roll us into our performance goals for focused improvement. And then that'll help us get to our ultimate destination, which is our outcome goal. Again, you should set your outcome goal first. Generally, understand what you want to do, and then come back to process to get a baseline. Then have your performance goals so you can focus and measure that improvement. And then before you know it, you'll get there. Like a lot of people say, pennies make dollars, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. A lot of times we go to the range, we want to shoot as fast and as hard as we can, and we'll spend 6-7 hours on the range. And in reality, a lot of that's kind of wasted time. Will you get better? Yeah, you'll get better. But is it as fast as you probably could? Maybe not. So get yourself a book, go through your different goals, measure your improvement, set yourself goals, and understand exactly what it takes to get there. I swear that never happens.
Good thing we got on camera.
Yeah, thanks. Goals talking, take one. Did you hear the echo on that clap?
That was great.
That was a man clap right there. That one had some toxic masculinity to it. All right.